You don't want to be that guy that's like completely unprepared, but it's still good to know that people in the paddock will help you out no matter what. Today we'll be talking about what to expect on your first track day. I would say like the first part is step 0. This is the stuff that you need to prepare before your first track day. You got to bring your stuff, your basic tools. You can't forget your helmet. If you don't have a helmet, then they have rentals. You also need to bring your snacks and water, and also bring your tech sheet. Otherwise, you can't get on track. Second step is prepare your car. Just check your basic maintenance. Check your brakes. Go over the tech sheet. Make sure your helmet's good. No motorcycle helmets. Make sure your windshield's not cracked. .4 brake fluid. This is probably one of the most important mods you could do is get new brake fluid, and make sure your tires are in good condition, right? Lug nuts present, torque down, right? And here's another thing that they check: battery securely bolted in place. And make sure you check your fluids, belts, hoses, and caps, and no leaks. These are things that you need to do before you show up. Make sure that you have all your stuff, and make sure your car is ready. And then the last thing for prep is make sure you're ready. It's, your mental state. What's your energy level? Are you paying attention? Are you anxious? If you're anxious, you calm down. If you're not paying attention, you need to have a cup of coffee. All these things matter because if you're like stressed out or anxious and not paying attention, your reaction time is getting longer and longer. So yeah, make sure you're in tip-top shape, get enough sleep, all that good stuff. The last thing to review for yourself is make sure that you know the track layout. Not just the turn numbers, but another important thing is where the flag stations are. Watch YouTube videos. I'm not saying watch my YouTube videos, watch someone fast like Dave. But for the first track day, don't focus on being fast, focus on being consistent. One last step before your first track day, read the instructions. Usually organizations will send you like an email sometime between the week before and the day of the track day. Just read all the instructions. Like, they'll have important information in there. Like if it's a big track like Daytona, there's multiple gates, right? They'll tell you what gate to enter. They'll sometimes post a driver's list so you can see what other cars are there. And attached to the driver's list, sometimes they'll show you who your instructor is too. Is there an entry fee to get in? Is there camping? Do they provide water and electricity? Who are the photographers for the weekends? And another thing they send is the schedule. This is probably the most important thing in the email. They'll tell you when like driver's meetings are, classroom time, and all that good stuff. That's all the stuff that you could do before the track day. So my first step I recommend is show up when the gates open, especially if you're new. Look at that schedule that you got in the email and see when the gates open, and get there right when the gate opens. I think it's really important for newbies to get there when the gate opens because you don't know the paddock layout. If you've been there a couple times, you could come in late, park in your spot, get everything out of your car, and then drive to tech. If you're a newbie, you don't know where tech is, so you're gonna have to follow arrows or look at a map. It's better to be safe on your first track day than miss tech inspection or driver's meeting, because then you're out for the rest of the day. If you miss those, then you can't drive. But as a newbie, I recommend show up when the gate opens. And plus, when you get there when the gate opens, you can get a good spot. Step 2 is find a spot in the paddock. So as you roll in, find a good spot where either you're with your friends, or sometimes some track days have a designated spot. So if you're a newbie, HPDE 1, they have a row for 1 and 2. Park there. All right, so after you find your spot in the paddock, you have a couple tasks. I'd say the first thing is like unpack the car. You don't want to have like tools in your trunk or your gas tank in the trunk. It happened to me recently. I think CMP. I left my air compressor in a trunk. I knew what it was as soon as I heard it after the first lap. I was like, oh man, I pulled in, went to my spot, took the air compressor out. By the time I got back out, the session was halfway over. So I lost a lot of seat time because I forgot to empty my car. All right, so after you unpack, make sure you take out your floor mats. That's one thing that people forget. You don't want your floor mats to bunch up under your brake pedal, right? And then again, review your tech sheet one more time. Go over it again when you get there, because your car might have been okay at home, but suddenly now, your brake fluid's low because it's been leaking. All right, step 3, tech inspection. Make sure you bring your helmet. They'll make sure that your helmet is within spec, and then park there and let them inspect your car. They'll just check everything that's on the tech sheet. Make sure that everything's empty and your floor mats are out. Number 4, you go back to your paddock and you do another self-inspection. People are like, oh man, let's hurry up and get on track. Well, you want to make sure these things are right. Otherwise, you're going to get off track early and probably not, the way that you want to get off track. And by that, I mean, if you forget to check your lug nuts and your wheel comes off because you changed them last night, then, that's your whole day gone. This is the time to also mount your cameras, make sure that everything's secure and not going to fly around. But when I mount my cameras, I want to double check them again before my first session because, is the battery good? Will it fly and hit me in the face? Will it spin around and all that stuff and distract me? You want to make sure those are taken care of. All right, step 5, attend the driver's meeting. Now you had your schedule and you know what time your driver's meeting is. It's usually the first thing in the morning. Just walk over there and then listen to them, right? There you'll go over flags, point bys. Every track, the way they do point bys differs slightly. So it's good to go to the driver's meeting because right then and there, they'll tell you how everyone's going to point by. After your driver's meeting and you hear the announcement for your session, that's when you go to false grid. So look for the arrows that say grid. You'll park there and you'll wait to go on track, usually 10 minutes before the session starts. So you'll start hearing announcements like 15 minutes, 10-minute warning, 5-minute warning, stuff like that. So that's actually how you end up on track. That first session is going to be yellow flag the whole time. It's no passing the entire session, not just the first lap. And what I want you to do on your first session when it's slow like that is learn the layout of the track. Like really go slow, look around, point things out like, oh, here's where the brake markers are, right? It's usually by meters. Here's where the apex is, there's a cone. Or here's where I track out because there's a curb there, right? So look for curbs, brake markers, and apexes. But even more important than that is learn where the flag stations are. They're gonna be holding 2 big yellow flags, right? Memorize where each one is. You should be able to see one at any given point. So after you pass one should be coming up within view. And a good exercise I like to do if I go to track for the first time is I like to point like, oh, there's a flag station. So I point to them. Oh, there's another flag station. There's number 2. And why? Why do you want to know where the flag stations are? Like other drivers can wave at you or point you by, but how do you know what's happening on track? Is it with your eyes, looking at the track itself, or looking at a flag station to get extra information? Another thing I like to do in my first session is I like to feel the track. So not only are you visually looking at the track and learning where everything is, but I like to actually drive over the rumble strips to see what they feel like. I remember my first time at CMP, that's kind of what I did. And I could tell like, okay, this one's a little too aggressive. I shouldn't drive on it. In the sim, I was driving on it, but I shouldn't here. Like this is going to break my suspension. This is going to crack my wheel. Do it slow. That's one option that might happen. You do your first session without classroom. The second option is you do your classroom before your first session. So if you have your classroom, just attend the class, listen. They'll give you the same advice I'm giving you. They'll tell you how point bys are done if you missed it in the driver's meeting, or they're going to emphasize it or correct it. They'll go over the flags, and they'll even give you some pointers and tips. For your first session, if you're a newbie, they will set you up with an instructor. So based on the organization, the instructor will meet you either at the DE1 paddock, where you're supposed to be parking, or at false grid. All right, so you're done with your first session. You check your tire pressure hot. When my tires are hot, I'm aiming for this tire pressure. As a novice, don't get too into it, but just make sure they're even. You're not driving at the limit yet, and it's not really something that, you don't want to adjust it if you don't know what your car dynamics are like yet. If you do know, or you do have recommendations from somebody, yeah, go for it only when the tire is hot. So yeah, after your first session, check your tire pressure and then chug water. You're going to be like sweating or anxious or nervous, and then you're going to be like about to pass out. You start to lose focus. So imagine your session 2, you've learned all these things and you survived your first session, but now you're dealing with fatigue or you're thirsty because you didn't drink water, and then your reaction time suffers. And then you actually do worse on your second session. You did all this stuff to get your car ready. Just drink water. Get yourself ready too. You spent all this money to get your car prepped, but you're too cheap to drink water. Eventually you'll get to lunch. Make sure you don't skip lunch. Don't eat something super heavy because then it'll make you sleepy, but also don't skip it because you're going to be like foggy if you're hungry. And at the end of the day, after all your sessions are done, that's when you just pack up and say goodbye to your instructor. And I think that's something that's usually missed. Instructors, they spend their whole day helping you out, treating you right, and sometimes they have like review sheets. So I would just, fill this out, maybe get the contact information of your instructor if you like them. Another thing is after you're done with your track day, have a night plan, whether it be, okay, I'm going to drive back today and I need to drink coffee, or I need to get back to my hotel Airbnb to get some sleep, or I try to drive back. I remember my first track day, I showed up there with Adam, not knowing. I knew some of the other guys, but I wasn't really that close. And then out of nowhere, they were all helping me with my car. Like, you don't want to be that guy that's like completely unprepared, but it's still good to know that people in the paddock will help you out no matter what. It's always good to ask questions. Like in our Discord, there's a lot of veteran track guys, a lot more seat time than I do in the chat. So hop on there, ask those guys questions of your first track day. You'll have someone like me answer, or someone who's just started, or even one of these veterans, and they're always willing to help. And that's the nice thing about the Discord. Just go to learn, right? Absorb as much knowledge as you can. If you have any more questions, just leave comments below. I've done one video on how to prep for your first track day. So if you need more information on that, go check out that video. I stream every Monday and Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern time on both YouTube and Twitch. Thanks guys for watching. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out.